What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a good day. Hope you're having a good week, and I hope you have a good weekend if you're watching this on Friday. I want to talk about Ben Shapiro, how he's sounding off against Trump and Iran, and I want to be very respectful and honest. I support Ben Shapiro when he says the right thing. I think he's great at mainstream conservative talking points. I think he's excellent at debating 18 and 19-year-olds on college campuses. I think he's awesome when he, goes against far-left progressives. It's not very hard to do for, well-spoken conservatives. But I find him horrible at foreign policy. I think he's awful. And I'm not just going to say that emotionally like Ben Shapiro does against Donald Trump. Of course, I don't mind criticism and critique against Donald Trump. I just find that Ben Shapiro has awful takes. We're going to take a look at them. And I guess today he was a little upset because he wants a war with Iran, or at least us to attack Iran really bad. I guess he doesn't get as much joy from selling promo code GOLD packages and DNA kits. Nothing soothes the heart and soul of Ben Shapiro like shots at Iran. So we're going to look at some of his tweets. Don't get upset if you like Ben Shapiro as well as me, or you like him more or less than me. It's all good. It's all love. I'm not a hater. I obviously compliment him when he does well with a lot of stuff. But let's take a look at a lot of his history when it comes to war and foreign policy. And first, I do want to say, too, because a lot of people, and probably the biggest thing I'll hear is, Anomaly, well, you changed. You used to support Bernie Sanders, and now you like President Trump, so people are allowed to change. I totally agree. I know a lot of people who went from left to right. When the Bernie thing happened, I didn't understand taxes. I didn't understand economy. I was never a war hawk. I was never a full-blown Democrat. I understood the two-party system was a lie. I was a lot deeper and more understood about the media and stuff as people want to give me credit for. However, I learned more and more and more. So, of course, I don't want to be hypocritical, and I want people to grow. But not only as in my personal perspective, Ben Shapiro hasn't grown at all. He keeps doing the same exact thing. But also, my story I could really explain, and I'll do it in further detail now. I don't quite understand how a conservative like Ben Shapiro, who's been in politics, keep in mind, I'm not a politician. I don't even consider myself a conservative now. I don't like that term. Of course, I lean more right-wing and libertarian, obviously, with my policies. But how did Ben Shapiro, a decade-long, political commentator and conservative, tell his audience to not support Trump? And he hated Trump. We're going to get into it in a second, but I just don't understand his history. I don't understand his present moment. And I think he goes beyond just critiquing Trump correctly. I think he's emotional, hateful, bitter, and awful with foreign policy, and he's wrong a lot. Let's get into it. I don't want to just talk. So these were a few of his tweets today. You could read them all on his Twitter. He said, "Interesting to watch Republicans embrace Bill Clinton's foreign policy with regard to terrorism." So now he's, accusing Trump of taking a Democrat or Bill Clinton foreign policy approach. He said a few other things, and one of the ones I saw, he said, "So keep quiet about your strategy or make consequence clear and obvious to everyone. Setting up vague standards or blustering without credibility is the worst of all possible worlds." So he's calling this the worst of all possible worlds. This is awful. Be quiet, Trump. Don't tell people your strategy. And this is funny because Ben has been wrong about Iraq. Ben's been wrong about Iran. Ben's been wrong about Syria. Ben was wrong about North Korea. I'm not quite sure what Ben's right about besides debating, 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds about transgenderism and far left, craziness. I don't know where he's really right. I find him dishonest, disingenuous, and just intellectually wrong all the time. And him saying, keep quiet about your strategy, Trump. You don't know what you're talking about. Although, of course, Donald Trump is one of the best deal makers and strategists that we've seen in a while. Let's rewind a week or two ago. This is Ben Shapiro. Holy crap. If true, Trump was 100% right and I was 100% wrong. Good on him. So this, just a week off of him being wrong about Trump's strategy. Of course, he was bashing Trump. He doesn't know what he's doing with tariffs. He doesn't know what he's doing with Mexico, blah, 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 blah. And then Trump does his thing, which is definitely unconventional and seems crazy at times. I agree. Trump was right. He got Mexico to do a lot on immigration without losing anything. So Trump facilitated a whole deal without losing a single dollar. It was just him finessing with words and threatening of tariffs. And this is Ben Shapiro admitting, if true, Trump was 100% right, I was 100% wrong. I responded and said, Ben, this is not the first time. It's often that Trump's 100% right and you're 100% wrong. And I'm not saying Trump's right on everything. I'm just saying I don't think Ben knows what he's talking about with foreign policy. Or he does, and his agenda is not America's agenda. Let's put it that way. So let's go down further. Let's look at some of his 2016 tweets, and then we're going to get into present stuff because I don't want to just bring up the past. But this is conservative Ben Shapiro. This is not on the fence, apolitical, just getting into he's been in the game for a long time. He said to Mike Huckabee, Huckabee said, Cruz and Kasich joined forces to stop Trump. I wish they wanted to stop Hillary as much as they did the Republican who is beating both of them. So this is Huckabee saying, I wish Cruz and Kasich, or however you say his name, would join forces, to help Trump. Anyway, Ben Shapiro retweets this. This is April, right before the election. He says, considering you joined forces with Trump to help stop conservatism in your own party, shut up. So this seems to be a trend with Ben. He says, be quiet, shut up. I've heard him tell Trump several times, get off Twitter, stop talking. And he doesn't do it in a way like I do. Like if I critique something that Trump says, I'll say, hey, maybe I wouldn't have said that if I was Trump, but I'll say, one, Twitter has been a very vital platform for Donald Trump. It's the only way he can get the direct statement that he wants to say past the press, or at least, here's what I said, then you can say what you want about it. It's a very direct form. It's been a huge success of Trump, and here's another thing that I say that I believe is much more honest than what Ben says. Trump is Trump. You can't take the good of Trump without the bad and crazy of Trump. No one can operate like Trump. Ben Shapiro, I know he thinks he's probably some sort of immaculate genius who's way smarter than Trump, but the truth is he's not. Trump's deal, like with Mexico where Ben admitted he's wrong, and how he's facilitating the Middle East, it's beyond what we've ever seen. So my thing is like, let Trump be Trump. We'll take the bad. We can critique it and say, oh, Trump, you shouldn't have said that. But Ben's like, shut up, be quiet, take his Twitter away. He's horrible, he's awful. It's like, Ben, you need to self-reflect and learn a little bit, because you're not going to, there are great things that Trump does that Ben could never do, and then Trump says some things that Trump wouldn't say, that Ben would say. But overall, I'd much rather have Trump as president, not Ben Shapiro. And I can't stand Ben always telling everyone to shut up, including him right here telling Mike Huckabee to shut up when Mike Huckabee is doing something that got Trump elected. And let's keep in mind, like I said, in 2016, I was apolitical. I leaned left more ideology-wise, not victim mentality per se-wise, but a lot of social things. They had me trapped a little bit. His story, Ben Shapiro's, he's conservative, trying to save conservatism, and he's railing against Mike Huckabee for joining forces with Trump. I understand Trump is not a normal conservative. I understand he could be a little shaky on the Second Amendment. A lot of people don't like that, and the First Amendment sometimes. However, Donald Trump saved conservatism. With no Trump, I'm sorry, but Cruz is not winning, Kasich is not winning. None of those Republicans are going to beat Hillary Clinton. None of them are going to do 1/80th of what Trump did. Trump, someone pointed this out on my Twitter, and it's true. Trump made Ted Cruz better. Ted Cruz was not that cool or doing progressive, cool things until Trump got there. Trump made Fox News better. I'm sorry, but Fox News was not doing the stuff that they're doing now until Trump paved the way and changed the game for conservatism. He saved conservatism. He made it cool. He held it by a thread. He's not the be-all, end-all. But if people would have listened to Ben Shapiro, conservative pundit in 2016, you wouldn't have right-wing judges. You wouldn't have de-escalation in the war in Syria, which, by the way, Ben Shapiro doesn't want. We're going to get into that later. You wouldn't have all of these things. You wouldn't have record low unemployment and the stock market doing like it's doing. All of that is a product of people not listening to Ben Shapiro while Ben Shapiro is telling Huckabee to shut up. And this didn't stop in 2016 before the election. This is after the election in 2017. This is a couple years ago now. Governor Mike Huckabee, or ex-governor, I don't know if he's still governor. Yikes. Robert Mueller called me, wants to talk. Don't know what it's about, but it will be leaked to New York Slimes or Washington Compost tomorrow. I don't know what's wrong with that. Even progressive left-leaning Bernie supporters would agree that New York Times and Washington Post are awful publications, which they are, and they've totally lied about so much. And what does Ben Shapiro say to him? He says, you are the only person on Twitter who should stop tweeting more than Donald Trump. He doesn't say tweet less. He doesn't say restrain yourself. He says, stop tweeting. Stop tweeting, Trump. Stop tweeting Mike Huckabee, even though you were the one who supported Trump and helped get him elected in 2016 when I was telling conservatives not to support him. And what does he say? This is my problem. I don't care if he critiques. I don't care if Ben Shapiro has an opinion. Shut up, be quiet, shut up, be quiet. No, Ben Shapiro, you, Silencio, big boy, sell your gold, sell your DNA kits to people, even though their data's going to God knows who. But just stop telling people to shut up when you don't know what you're talking about. And we're going to get into that further. So I can't stand his little snarky, shut up, be quiet, shut up, Trump, shut up, be quiet, get off Twitter, shut. No, Ben Donald Trump is 20 times the man, 20 times the leader, 20 times the president, 20 times the political analyst than you'll ever be. You're allowed to be Ben Shapiro and critique him, but stop telling people who do more than you and do better than you to shut up. It's so annoying. Let's look at Ben's history, because Ben's history when it comes to Iraq, Iran, and Syria is awful. And I'm going to show you, I mean, you could look into it yourself, but let's just see. This is his reporting from 2002. I know that's a long time, but also that's how long Ben Shapiro's been in the political game, since 2002. So he's not like, oh, you know, I'm getting into politics and I don't really understand that much about Trump and Bernie and taxes. He's a lawyer. He's been studying conservatism for 16 years, and he's telling people not to vote for Trump and railing against people supporting him. I don't know how that makes sense, but that's fine. Everyone has a chance to grow. I'm just waiting for Ben Shapiro to grow out of his ways. Enemy civilian casualties okay by me. Oh, brilliant. He says, I'm getting really sick of people who whine about civilian casualties. Maybe I'm a hard-hearted guy, but when I see in the newspapers that civilians in Afghanistan or in the West Bank were killed by American or Israeli troops, I don't care. So Ben doesn't care about civilians. He doesn't say terrorists. He says, I don't care that civilians died. I think a normal, rational, sane person would say, you know, I don't want civilians to die. Let's try to minimize civilian casualties. He says, it's okay by me, as long as they're killed by American or Israeli troops, but never accuse someone of being a dual citizen, because that's, of course, horrible and anti-Semitic, and we'll get into that later. You're not allowed to even suggest it, but I guess only if they're killed by American or Israeli troops. Ben doesn't care. He thinks that's fine, according to his own. You know, you could read that whole thing to get the whole scoop. This is him in 2005. He says, why war in Iraq is right for America. So he's very pro-war in Iraq, and this is something that Donald Trump is very anti-war in Iraq. Donald Trump slammed Bush for the worst single mistake in U.S. history. So in my personal perspective, the real reason, among others, that Ben Shapiro doesn't like Donald Trump is because Donald Trump is anti-war. Donald Trump is doing everything that Shapiro never would have done, or Ted Cruz or John McCain never would have done, slamming people like George Bush and war hawks in the Republican Party. And Ben Shapiro wanted to start that war. Even John McCain, who I don't agree with barely ever, said that it was a mistake, the Iraq war, in his book. So, I mean, not that John McCain's opinions would be all end all, but Ben Shapiro wanted the war in Iraq, and Trump doesn't want the war in Iraq. Let's go on to Ben Shapiro's Syria analysis, which is awful, 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 regardless of how you feel. I mean, you could disagree with me. Like always, it's open, but it's so bad that on his own channel, The Daily Wire, you can see it right here, it's got 2.7K up likes and 3,200 dislikes. So it's pretty hard, I have to say. It's never happened to me or a lot of people. Joe Rogan, it happened when he had the awful, I won't say awful, but podcast with the Twitter CEO where nobody liked him. It's pretty hard when you're as popular as Ben Shapiro to get more dislikes on your own channel, The Daily Wire, the company that he works for and pretty much owns. It's hard to do that, but people are seeing through his lies, and his Syria analysis makes no sense. April 9th, 2018, this was just last year. So this video includes, you can watch it, I think it's like 50 minutes long, I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but I was listening to it today, and he's basically trying to tell Trump to attack Syrian planes, attack Syria in any way possible, like just deplete their military completely, which would probably start an all-out war, maybe not. But my point being is, in his whole analysis, he doesn't mention, at least from what I heard, you can listen to the whole thing, he's talking about Iran and Russia being in Syria, which is very true, but he's not talking about ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Al-Nusra in Syria. And I barely ever, even in 2017, 2016, I don't hear him talk about that much, and I don't hear him accurately portraying what would happen in Syria. So in Syria, there's a proxy where you have, the Syrian government, and then you have Russia and Iran on their side, and then you have us, but then you also have terrorist organizations and rebel groups. So there's like 10 different people fighting each other, and we're claiming to fight ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra. Meanwhile, they're growing and expanding all over the region. Meanwhile, we're fighting the leader of Syria. What happens if we take out the leader of Syria, like Ben Shapiro, Mr. Warhawk, promo code, let's start a war in Syria? What happens if we took out Bashar al-Assad and his entire army like Ben Shapiro wanted? One, we start a war with Russia. One, we start a World War III. I don't want to be that alarmist, but the main point that he never touches on, never talks about, if you take out them, who's going to take over in Syria? Who's going to stabilize Syria? No one's going to stabilize Syria, because then you have Iraq, Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra. They might be the strongest group on the ground. They took over a lot of cities during the Obama region. Trump came in and did something amazing. He definitely did a little strike at Syria. You know, he said it was a weapons facility. But overall, he started actually attacking ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and al-Nusra, and they disappeared completely from the region. So Trump is a peacemaker. Trump went, actually defeated terrorists, and said, you know what, I'm going to back off Bashar al-Assad. Regardless of what you think, it's his country. And the whole reason that Ben Shapiro and the mainstream media justifies war in Syria, they say that he chemically attacked his own people. And this report is coming after Trump said he's pulling troops out of Syria because he did his job and got rid of terrorists. And then all of a sudden, Bashar al-Assad chemically attacks his own people. That's what the media said. Like, he's going to chemically attack civilians randomly a day or two after Trump says he's going to pull out troops to make America and Israel and all these other countries throw their weight back in the... No, of course, it probably didn't happen. And I'm not saying that as a conspiracy theorist. I'm saying that as somebody, one of the biggest characters from the Syrian war is this kid right here. And you can see later it came out that his father said that the U.S. was using this as propaganda and saying, you know, this, look at this kid, we got to fight Bashar al-Assad. And the family of this kid actually supports Bashar al-Assad. And from what I know and people I know in Syria, a lot of people support Bashar al-Assad. Tulsi Gabbard went there and said, everyone supports Bashar al-Assad. You don't have to believe Tulsi, you don't have to believe me, but understand that it's his country, even if he was chemically attacking his own people, which, just to be honest, I don't believe he did. And let me just go back to Ben Shapiro's his old take before. Maybe I'm a hard-hearted guy, but when I see newspapers that civilians in Afghanistan and West Bank are killed by American or Israeli troops, I don't really care. This is coming from a guy who admits he doesn't care if Middle Eastern civilians are killed. Okay, Ben Shapiro, you scumbag, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude or mean, but I have friends in Syria, civilian friends. Are you okay with killing random civilians in Syria? My buddy Trekka, who does awesome videos, Ben Shapiro, oh, well, you know, if it saves more life, let's kill him. It's like, dude, you're a scumbag. He's such a snake. He's such a liar. And I'm honestly tired of it. I support him when he does great. I don't like to be emotional and call people names and be horrible, but we're going to keep going into this because Ben Shapiro's take on Syria is horrible. You attack the leader of Syria, even if they're chemically attacking people. This coming from Ben Shapiro, who is okay with attacking people, not chemically, but civilians are fine. I don't know if Bashar al-Assad feels the same way. If he's as hawkish as Ben, maybe he is. But what are you going to do? Take him out, Ben Shapiro, take out his whole army, and then leave Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, ISIS to take over? No. You do what Donald Trump did. You take out the terrorist groups, which Obama didn't do at all. They were growing. Look at the map of before and after. Trump did the right thing. Let Bashar al-Assad do what he wants to do. If he kills 15 of his own civilians, yes, it's awful, but there's millions of people dying all over the world. We only, when there's a war agenda, we say, let's go there, let's go here, let's go there. Just be honest about it. What do you want to go there for, Ben Shapiro? What do you want to go to Venezuela for? Is it to help people? Then how come you're not helping people in these countries? How come you're not helping people in the streets of California? How come? I don't believe it. So I'm just going to be quite frank. There's always an agenda, and his Syria analysis is awful, because if you do what he wanted to do in Syria, it ends up like Libya or any other country. You can't take out the leader, destabilize the whole region, and expect there to be some sort of law and order. Like the jig is up on we're going to kill the leader and we're going to Americanize it. How are we going to do that? We're going to rebuild a whole civilization over there in Syria, when if you look at pictures of Syria, here, I'm going to put some up here. It's actually beautiful. It's one of the most secular places. Of course, they have their problems, but it's not all just like anthills and sand dunes. Like, there's actually a civilization there. I don't quite buy, and there's been a lot of propaganda, I don't quite buy that Bashar al-Assad is this whole, crazy person. I do understand that Russia and Iran are there. I understand that he could be a bad guy. I know Trump thinks he is, and maybe he is, but in general, Ben Shapiro's Syria take is so bad that his own page can't even get more up likes than down likes, because everybody knows that his take is horrible. Here's Ben Shapiro doing the same thing on Fox News, getting more dislikes than likes, criticizing, you can watch the whole thing, I don't even feel like playing a clip. He's criticizing Donald Trump for his take in North Korea, because Donald Trump did the thing with Kim Jong-un. He met with them, shook his hand, got North and South Korea opening. I mean, Donald Trump changed the game by being friendly but strong very strong to Kim Jong-un, which at first even I was like, whoa, why would he say that on Twitter? Just like Ben Shapiro says, Trump, be quiet. Why are you saying? But the difference is I learn. Ben just has an agenda and doesn't want Trump to not strike Iran. I don't think he really wants him to be quiet. Anyway, he's critiquing all this stuff with North Korea. Meanwhile, what Trump did there, in my perspective and many others, was fine. And he could say that, but it's like this dude is constantly wrong. It's when is he right? And he said in this take, you can watch the whole thing yourself, I would have said the same thing if Obama did it. I would have said the same thing. Well, I wouldn't have said the same thing if Obama did it because I wanted Obama to talk to Kim Jong-un. And there's clips, you could look them up yourself, of Dennis Rodman saying, dude, Obama won't even take a phone call with North Korea. And now you're finding out all these reports that the CIA was working and infiltrating North Korea, and that a lot of these reports of Kim Jong-un killing his people are turning out to be false, and it never happened. They keep reappearing. So it's like, was the fake news media lying about North Korea? Almost definitely. Were they trying to keep presidents like Obama and Trump from speaking to Kim Jong-un and having a relationship with him? Absolutely. So Trump did what you should do. He made a relationship with them. And of course, Ben Warhawk Shapiro has to say, I don't agree with that. He did that to a dictator. It's like, Ben, you need the silencio, bro. You're wrong about everything, every war. And Syria, Iraq, Iran, I mean, he's always just trying to get the United States into bigger conflicts. And Donald Trump is not. And I want to say a few things as well real quick. First of all, I'm okay with Shapiro criticizing Trump. He's allowed to have his perspective on Trump. I'm allowed to have my perspective on Shapiro. That's all fair. What I don't like is, I'll repeat again real quick, that he keeps telling Trump to shut up and telling Mike Huckabee and everyone to be quiet, shut up. I don't like that. And I don't like censorship. And I find, and I'm going to say this, and I know it's not popular to say on the right wing, but I'm a true free speecher. I always have been. I've never in my life supported speech laws, and I've also never been anti-Second Amendment. However, Ben Shapiro, Ted Cruz, Crenshaw, a lot of these guys, I don't know Crenshaw for sure, but it seems like it, they actually support anti-free speech regulation all over the place, even DeSantis and others, and they masqueraded in this anti-Semitism. We're fighting anti-Semitism. We're fighting anti-Semitism. It's the same thing the left wing does. We're fighting feminism. We're anti-feminism. We're fighting extremism. We're fighting bigotry. We're fighting Islamophobia. They do the same thing on the right wing, and Ben Shapiro is a huge culprit of it. And I don't like it because when you talk about anti-Semitism, it's very real. There are people who just hate all Jews, and they're irrational about their hate, and it's awful. And I've caught Ben Shapiro, maybe if I'm feeling bold, I'll go find them, on so many occasions lying about anti-Semitism and calling criticism that's valid anti-Semitism himself, and then working with Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is bragging today on Twitter about how he's trying to pass this condemnation bill on Ilhan Omar for questioning AIPAC. Oh my goodness, she's so anti-Semitic, so we have to pass speech regulation or condemnation regulation on Congress.
Joining us on the line is Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, who's been very busy all around the Senate. He recently had a resolution on anti-Semitism that was approved by the full Senate. He had a hearing today. Okay, so Senator Cruz, meanwhile, you have also sponsored this week, in the last couple of weeks, a resolution that condemns anti-Semitism. I know that was impossible for Democrats to get through the House, considering there are actual anti-Semites sitting in the House that would require some sort of condemnation. Instead, they passed this bizarre, broad-scale, everything that is bad resolution. Instead, in the Senate, you guys passed an actual resolution condemning anti-Semitism. Was that hard to get through? Did you have any kickback from your Democratic colleagues on that?
Well, it's an interesting question. As you rightly note, what's been happening in the House has been disgraceful, and it's been heartbreaking for many of us. We've got this trio of freshman House members who over and over again have been making comments that essentially recite anti-Semitic tropes that go back a long, long time. And in response to some of the more egregious comments by these House freshmen, Democratic leadership in the House, Nancy Pelosi, wanted to move forward with a straightforward resolution condemning anti-Semitism. Unfortunately, the Democratic caucus fractured on that. They couldn't hold Democrats together to condemn anti-Semitism. Instead, they watered it down to a general condemnation of all forms of hatred, all forms of bigotry against anything imaginable.
And he admits in his own video that this condemnation law ended up getting watered down, and when it got through, it had all types of racism and bigotry and xenophobia. It wasn't just an anti-Semitism bill in it. And I'm going to correct Ted Cruz because I read the bill, or I read the condemnation legislation, or whatever they're calling it, the warning, or people are like, it's not a bill, it's a warrant. Whatever it is, they're trying to put a spotlight on it and censor speech, whether it be via law or via condemnation, legislature. The condemnation Ted Cruz paper. It's not really what it's called. You get what I'm saying. He admitted that it went through and it wasn't just anti-Semitism. I looked at it. It's not all condemning all hate. It's condemning all sorts of hate and racial and religious hate, except for two or a few that I caught that weren't there. There was no anti-Christian there. There was no white. So it was pretty much everybody gets a new victim card except for white and Christian. So a total fail from Ted Cruz and Shapiro and all these other people who are pushing through anti-speech laws. They're pro-free speech, but they can't have a conversation without calling someone anti-Semitic when it's not. And I want to read a few things real quick. This is from Haaretz, which is a Jewish newspaper. It can't be anti-Semitic. They're one of the oldest Jewish publications out. Before the ill-fated Iraq war, Netanyahu came to D.C. to assure lawmakers that Saddam had nukes or was on the verge with the help of mobile centrifuges no bigger than washing machines. Depose Saddam would do wonders for the Middle East, he promised. So this is a Jewish publication saying that Netanyahu was lobbying for the war in Iraq, which now Donald Trump vehemently opposes, as well as probably more than half of conservatives. And here they are also saying he's doing the same thing with Iran. This is a Jewish publication doing this. So if I were to say this, they would say it's anti-Semitic for, suggesting that. But since they do it, I guess it's okay. Here's Nancy Pelosi saying if our Capitol crumbled tomorrow or today, the only thing that would be standing is our aid for Israel. So she says, if our country is destroyed tomorrow, we'd still be giving aid to Israel, even if we didn't have our own country.
I have said to people when they ask me, if this Capitol crumbled to the ground, the one thing that would remain is our commitment to our aid, and I don't even call it aid, our cooperation with Israel. That's fundamental to
How does this make sense to everybody? I love Jewish people. I think Israel has the right to survive. I think it's great that they have a place that is just their, country. I think that's fine. How in the world is that normal? Imagine if Trump said that about Russia. Imagine if Obama said that about anything. Imagine if any person said that about any other country except for Israel. It would be insane. If our country crumbles and collapses, we'll still be giving aid to you. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then if you say something about it or you question dual citizenship or dual loyalty, they say that that's anti-Semitic, even though you have people like Shapiro and others constantly saying, well, if American and Israeli, civilians kill, or if civilians in Afghanistan and West Bank are killed by American or Israeli troops, I don't really care. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't be like if Italian or American or, or Polish and American troops, it's like, it's just so ridiculous. So the reason I'm saying all this is, one, they're literally trying to pass speech regulation. The right wing is, and the Ben Shapiro right wing, and the Ted Cruz right wing, even the Donald Trump right wing. They're anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism. And I just want to say, on this note, because I actually do care about Jewish people and the Jewish community, the way to stop anti-Semitism, in my personal perspective, and many others, is to confront your problems in your community, to confront things that people of your ethnicity and religion do honestly. If you paint everything as anti-Semitic, if you do the same thing that the left wing does with Islamophobia and xenophobia, which is what the right wing does, they can't separate, true hatred. And even then, are we going to pass speech regulations? What are we going to do? Are we going to be hypocrites now? Oh, I could say that. Ben Shapiro has no problem talking about Arabs. He has no problem, saying edgy stuff about black people. And then if you did the same thing to him, he'd be like, whoa, anti-Semitic. Whoa, how dare you say that? The hypocrisy is literally astounding. And I don't agree with it. And I understand them not being able to take any sort of criticism. You can't criticize AIPAC. You can't say what Nancy Pelosi say is weird. You can't think that people who clearly do have multiple interests, you can't say that they have multiple interests. You're building and building and building the hate for Jewish people. And I can't stand that. And I know I have Jewish friends who agree with me because I'm like, guys, censoring everybody, like when you censor people and throw them in a corner like they're doing to Trump supporters, is it stopping the ideology of conservatism or Trump? No, it's fueling it. Donald Trump has actually benefited greatly from all of the crazy stuff that the left is doing. It's making him stronger and more powerful, and it's making people more passionate about supporting Trump. I know it's made me, just like when it was the other way around and I was supporting Bernie for thinking he was anti-establishment, it made me like him 20 times more, the fact that I felt I was fighting against a force that wouldn't let me say anything and were trying to censor and silence me. So it's the same thing with the Ben Shapiros and the Ted Cruzes and even the Donald Trumps. When you do the hypocritical thing where it's like, you say something about that, I'm not Islamophobic, I'm not racist, but then you call people anti-Semitic for everything. And trust me, you could look it up, and maybe I will put one here in front of me if I get the chance to. But not all the stuff they're saying, they're basically rendering the term useless, just like the word racism is almost useless now because the left wing and the media has made it useless. They made everything air is racist, breathing's racist, not being racist is racist. Now the word has no meaning. Sexism has no meaning. Xenophobia, and I think these are very serious things, but it's like you look at the end goal, and the end goal is not, whether it be anti-Semitism, racism, sexism, or xenophobia, whether they know it or not, it's not stomping it out, because I could see the path and they're actually growing it. I mean, in the last 2 years, I've rethought a lot of things when it comes to racism, sexism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, not in the fact of becoming more hateful and rude and mean in myself, but I've explored, women and their biology. I've explored, history more. I've explored the present moment. I've explored ideologies. And it's not like, oh, I'm not going to say or research that more. You're actually annoying people. I'll give you a better example. The LGBT community, 4 years ago, I had no problem with the whole movement. Do what you want to do, get married. Now that they've been so ridiculous and hypocritical and insane, now I've taken a closer look at it all, and I'm like, you know what? Actually, you guys are out of control, so now you need to chill. So they're actually turning more people against them by being so crazy. If they just are honest and don't ask for, more victim cards and speech laws, then we'll never get to that point. So overall, I just wanted to say a few things, and I wanted to wrap on that note because I know that's a hot button issue that is soon to be completely censored out of oblivion. They're already censoring books on Amazon. They're deleting, YouTube videos in all shapes and form, and it is a ball that will come up and destroy you. Whether you think you're fighting racism or sexism or anti-Semitism, eventually that great ball of intolerance to speech is going to swallow you up, and you're going to be like, but how? I was on the side of help. It's like, no, you're building a beast. We don't need more speech regulation or speech condemnation. We need a real discussion. And I just wanted to also, wrap up with, I think Ben does amazing work when it comes to regular conservatism. I think he has a lot of valid points. I think he's a strong voice and he gets through to the other side a lot. I think he's brought a lot of people over to understand a little bit of conservative ideology, and I think his impact's enormous, and I bless him and wish him the best for that. But I know his critiques of Trump, in my personal perspective and why I made this video, I don't find them honest. I find his war policy terrible. I find his, calling everything anti-Semitic when it's not, hypocritical completely. Him constantly bashing people like Huckabee and Trump, didn't really want him to get elected, still bashing Huckabee to this day, telling everyone to shut up and silence. I think when you do that type of stuff, you elicit responses like this. Not me hating him or being overly rude or emotional, more me saying, you know what, they shouldn't be quiet. Stop trying to silence them. Stop trying to push them down. When it's you that when you go to North Korea, when you go to Syria, when you go to Iran, when you go to a lot of things, your track record's horrible. And as a decade or 2 decade long or lifelong conservative, your record on getting Trump elected, if people listen to you, he wouldn't be elected, and you still haven't stopped to this day. He has like a personal vendetta against Trump. He thinks he's smarter and better and wants to do foreign policy, but Trump has ran circles around him at Mexico tariff trades, in Syria. I mean, Ben Shapiro never would have done what Trump did, and I'm very grateful for that. So that's my response to Ben is, I'm open to debate at any time. I'm sure he doesn't want to, but in general, and out of the love, stop telling Trump to shut up. Stop telling Mike Huckabee to shut up. And if you want a war with Iran so bad and a war with Syria and you want to take out their military, you can enlist in the United States Army or military or Navy since you're okay with other civilians getting killed. Why don't you go do it yourself in the U.S. Army then, Ben Shapiro, if you're such a supporter of American freedom and you really badly want us to do more aggressive things towards Iran because you think it's for the better of our country? Go enlist yourself. That's the least you could do, and I know a lot of people feel that way. Thank you for listening. Let me know your perspective and your thoughts. God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America. God bless the world. Have a good weekend, and thank you, Donald Trump, for not going to war and not striking Iran. We'll see what happens in the future, but I want to say my thoughts, because Ben said his thoughts. My thoughts are, I don't think Trump, I'm sure it was maybe closer than people would want, but I don't think it was like they're about to shoot him and Trump's running down the hallway. Wait, stop. I absolutely think Trump is using this as a business tactic. He wants Iran to know how close he was to striking them. I think that's the whole point of it, and I don't think it takes a rocket scientist or a lawyer or a doctor to understand that. I think he wants to portray it as, we were this close to attacking you, but I highly doubt Trump sprinting, wait, don't shoot them, I just learned something 5 minutes ago. He knows this stuff, and he's going to use this to his advantage, like he did in North Korea, which Ben Shapiro disagreed with, like he did in Syria, which Ben Shapiro disagreed with, which he would have done in Iraq, which Ben Shapiro disagreed with. Dude, he's wrong about everything, and facts don't care about your feelings. Have a good day. God bless, guys.